I am not for sale.
Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry, second only to drug trafficking. Our generation is at risk for sex trafficking because we are more vulnerable due to social media, gaming, and the current drug epidemic. Every 30 seconds, another person becomes a victim of human trafficking. We are trying to raise awareness to fight human trafficking in our local and global community. Join us this Sunday, March the 3rd at 6 p.m. at Bethel Church to learn more with True Justice International. Rise up, be informed, and get involved.
We're glad you're here tonight, and thank you for being here. If you're visiting with us tonight, we're glad that you have chosen to be with us. If you don't have a home church, we would invite you to be here. Our ushers are in the back. If they can help you in any way tonight, we would be glad to help you. For many of you parents who may be visiting with us, we do have child care available tonight. We really believe that 5th grade and down, it wouldn't be good for them to be in here. So if you need that child care, our ushers at the back, they can take you to where those places are from 5th grade all the way down. 5th grade through kindergarten is over in the Paramore building, and our ushers can take you there. And then we have toddler and nursery facilities here in this building also if you need those tonight. So if you need to make your way to that, you can do that. We want to remind you of that. We have not announced that. I'm going to tweet it in just a few minutes when I sit down, but we are live streaming this. We didn't want to announce that because we wanted as many people to be here in the pews as can, but it is being live streamed and it will be archived. You can go to our Bethel Church Facebook site and see that, or you can go to the BethelFWB.com and see it there as well, so that you can share that with others, and that so that other churches can have an opportunity to hear what Miss Bryan has to say. We are privileged to have Tricia Bryan with us from True Justice International. Kim and I and Brick just met her. Brick knew her, but Kim and I got a chance to meet her in my office briefly right before service and have prayer with her and the ministry that she is being a part of. As I told our church this morning, and Tricia shares this same thought, I wish that she were not here speaking tonight. I wish that it wasn't something we were having to deal with. I wish that it was something that we didn't have to become aware about. But in the world that we live in, it is here. It's among us. And Brick and Allison have had her speak with our teen ladies. And Miss Gates here at Bethel Christian Academy heads up a chapter here of students who are making other students aware. So we're just really glad to have Tricia Bryan with us tonight. She will tell you all about True Justice International, how you could even be a part of that. She has some information that Miss Gates and Miss Crowder will be at the back after helping, and maybe even some of our students helping man that table if you have further questions. We are going to receive an offering tonight at the end of the service if you'd like to give toward this, but we want you to hear what is being said. And then especially students that are here, many of you I see that are sitting with your parents. I think that's a positive thing tonight. And but students, I would really appreciate that you give Miss Bryan your undivided attention. She will talk about some things of sensitive nature. One thing that Brick and Allison told me, Miss Bryan, that you are very good at covering delicate subjects. And so we appreciate that. So without further ado, would you welcome her to our church, Miss Tricia Bryan? Thank you for coming. Ms. Bryan, we want to welcome you to our church, and Kim and I are glad you can be with us tonight, and thank you for ministering to our young ladies a couple of weeks ago at the table. But as I've become aware, it's not just young ladies that this is affecting. So we want to give you as much time as we can tonight. Okay. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Tricia Bryan. I am with True Justice International. Let me see if I do this right. And we are a local ministry out of New Bern, North Carolina. We started our ministry in 2012 is when our ministry started. Sarah Tullis is our founder. And just to give you a little background of who we are, her husband is Greek. And so they were in Greece visiting his family. And that was when God really opened her eyes to human trafficking. And Sarah, our founder, is the kind of person who is a rescuer by nature. If there is an animal on the side of the road, she's going to pick up that animal and she's going to rescue it. And so when her heart was open to what was happening to women and to boys and to people being held captive, it just broke her heart. So this ministry started with about 5 women who just had a heart for the Lord and loved the Lord and just wanted to see change happen. And that's how we started. We started out as the Pearl Ministry. So in the table in the back, we have our pearl bracelets. That was one of our first things we came up with. Because in Scripture, it talks about the pearl of great price, and that we are all a pearl of great price, and we all have value and we all have worth. And so that's where we started with the pearl. Our pearl bracelets are in 33 different countries, and so they go to people associated with human trafficking with the message of the pearl, and to tell them that they are special and beautiful and that God can make something wonderful out of their lives. And so that's how we kind of started, and then we just have continued to grow. Our mission is to reach, raise up, and renew those associated with human trafficking. So that is what we work to do. We have a couple of different initiatives that we work with. We have our Grace Projects, and what that is that's our safe house. We have a restoration house called Anna's House, and we take care of women who have been trafficked. We provide all of their needs, we provide all of their counseling, we have people who help them get all their stuff that they need to take care of. We have mentors that come in, they have programs that they work through to help them get past what has happened to them and have a full, fulfilled life. We have had that house open. We are getting ready to celebrate our 2nd anniversary this month. And so we do a lot of work with that. In the time that we've been open, we've helped over, I think it's 37 women. Some who have lived in our house, some who are in our program but don't necessarily live in our house. And so that is our Grace Projects. We have our Voice It, that is our lawmaking part of our ministry. And so what we do with Voice It is we were very pivotal in getting a bill passed that you have to learn about human trafficking in the schools. And so that is my main job, is I go into the schools and educate on human trafficking. And so that people can know about it. So we are also working on some other laws that have happened. The Safe Harbor law, we also had a part in that makes it that anybody under the age of 18 is a minor, and so that comes into fact with the human trafficking, that anybody that's under 18 is automatically considered a victim in human trafficking and no longer can be arrested, which is a huge thing, because a lot of times the people who are victims are the ones who get arrested. And so that's a big law that we were able to get changed, and Sarah, our founder, was part of that governor's task force who did that. We also have our Orphans Cry, which works to help adopt children that are aging out of the foster system. The foster system is a huge area where kids are trafficked from, and it's not a huge leap, we find, for those that have been in the foster system, because somebody is making money off of them already, and they really have no say where they go, what families they live with, when they're being transferred. And so it's not a big jump for somebody from foster system to find themselves in human trafficking, because it really is just one more person making money off of them. And so we really work to try to get those kids adopted and find loving homes and find places for them to be able to plug in where they can know that true love of Christ and have that family connection that they need. And then we have the Will Force, which is the education part. And that is what I am in charge of, is our education and awareness. So that's a little bit about who we are at True Justice and what we do. So we are going to get into the meat. What is human trafficking? How many of you have ever heard the term human trafficking? Okay. So when you hear human trafficking, I'm going to have you talk back with me a little bit. What are some things that you associate with human trafficking? What are some words or things that you would associate with human trafficking when you hear those words? Anybody want to shout something out? Slavery. What else? Prostitution. Kidnapping. Anything else? Abuse. Absolutely. So when we look at human trafficking, there's a big umbrella. There's actually 3 types of human trafficking that follow under that umbrella. One is organ trafficking. There is actually a black market out there that organs are bought and sold on. Then we have labor trafficking, and then there's sex trafficking. Labor trafficking is one that we typically see are foreign people that get caught in that, usually because there's a language barrier. They don't know our laws, they don't speak our language. A lot of times they're coming here trying to live that American dream, trying to find that better life. And because they don't know our laws, they don't know our language, or their visa could be tied to somebody who brought them to this country, which makes them very, very vulnerable, because without that person, their visa is no longer valid. So we see a lot of labor trafficking in that aspect. There's a lot of pride sometimes. They might be making some form of a wage, so they don't want to lose what little they're making, and so they will stay. We see that a lot in our farm industries, especially in Eastern North Carolina. We also see it a lot in our hotel industries. We've got lots of beach areas, we have a lot of hotel areas, and so you do see, that's where we see a lot of the labor trafficking in that aspect. The sex trafficking is the one we're going to focus the most, because that is the one that there is active recruitment. That is the one where we see people constantly being recruited, and as they say, every 30 seconds somebody is brought into sex trafficking. So what is it? It has to be a form of a commercial sex act. That is the legal term that if someone's going to take a case to court, it has to be a commercial sex act. So what makes it that? It can be video, it can be pictures, it can be any form of a sex act, and it's done in exchange for money. There's always an exchange for something that makes it commercial. And that's one of those factors that have to be there. If they're going to try a case, they have to show force, fraud, or coercion, meaning they were forced into it, they were fraudulently brought into it, or they were coerced into it. Unless the victim is a minor, at that point in time, it automatically shows force, fraud, and coercion, because minors are not allowed to legally give consent. And that's where that safe harbor law comes in. They cannot legally give consent, so that means automatically that it is sex trafficking. So when you look at that, what does that look like? That could be somebody saying, I need a ride to work. Can you give me a ride to work? Well, I'll give you a ride to your job, but you have to do this for me instead if you really want to ride. Or, I don't have a place to sleep tonight. I don't have a bed to put my head in. Well, I have an extra room. You can stay with me, but you're going to do this in order to earn your keep. What we see a lot here, we have an opioid issue. It is something that is rampant in our counties. I need my next drug. Well, if you want your drugs, you do this, and I will give you your drug. So there's a lot of give and take there. There's a lot of manipulation that happens when we see sex trafficking. It usually will start, that give and take, I need something. And as we get into this, we'll kind of look at how that manipulation works and how those predators really kind of prey on our people. So when we look at this and what does it look like? It does typically look like a prostitution situation. That's what most of us would look at and say, this is what it is. But understanding that, how many of you have seen the movie Taken? Okay, so we kind of in our brain, we think kidnap, we think somebody's taken, we think somebody's taken away. But what you need to understand is that's only about 10% of the cases. It does happen. We did have a person in our program who was kidnapped off the streets in Jacksonville, put into that white van, everything you imagine, it did happen. But 90% of the cases, it's relationship-based. It is something where there's been a relationship. It can be, we see a lot of familial. So family members trafficking family members, and that is usually drug-related. It's usually because there's drugs there, parents trafficking children. We've seen neighborhood boys trafficking neighborhood girls. We have seen neighbors trafficking neighbors. So it's not always that taken scenario. Our most common way we see it is older guys preying on younger girls. That is one of our most common ways we do see the trafficking kind of emerge, is that older boyfriend dating a younger girl. And it starts in a dating process, and it's called what we call a grooming process. They groom them. They'll buy them things. They're going to tell them they feel beautiful. They're going to tell them that they're special. They're going to make this whole scenario of they're in love with them, and so they get them to the point where they think they're in love with them, and this person loves them, and it usually will come into, well, if you really loved me, you would do this for me, because I need you to do this for me. And if you truly loved me the way I love you, then you would go ahead and do this. And so that's kind of one of the main ways we see it. With boys, we see a lot of it coming through their gaming systems. Sometimes it could be a romantic thing, but a lot of times we see that father figure or an older brother figure, because a lot of times They're going to find the boys that do not have a father figure in their lives. They're going to look for the boys who don't have that strong dad figure in their lives. And so they can come in as that big, strong dad figure, that person that those boys are looking for, and that void that they have in their lives. North Carolina is number 8 out of the 50 states. We're in the top 10. So when we look at reported cases of human trafficking out of all the 50 states, we are always in the top 10. Since I have been doing this, since we have been founded as a ministry, we have been in the top 10. There's a lot of factors into that. One, I will say, as a state, we're doing a phenomenal job of really coming together statewide, putting in ministries like ours and other places in place to battle the human trafficking. So we are seeing more cases because they're being called what they're called, and they're being labeled what they're supposed to be labeled. And so that's one reason why we're seeing that we are up there in the top 10. The other part is it's here. It's not just in big cities. It's not just in other countries. It is here. It is in Eastern North Carolina. It is something that is happening readily here. They say if you have a hotel in your town, you have a human trafficking problem. When you talk to the law enforcement, to the FBI, and to those people, that's what they say. So I have a couple numbers up here. The first one is 30 million. That's how many people are actively involved in human trafficking on today's basis. And actually, since I've made this slide, that number has jumped up closer to 40 million people that are enslaved worldwide. So when you think about ending slavery and you think about the slave trade and all of that, and that we abolished slavery, slavery has not been abolished. It is very much alive and well. There are many people that are enslaved today globally, and it is something that is just actively happening. The 150 billion is the money. It is a $150 billion industry. And when I thought about this industry, how many of you have ever been to Disney or know somebody who's gone to Disney? How many of you have ever watched a Disney movie or purchased a Disney movie? How many of you ever bought a Disney costume or a stuffed animal or a toy or something that belongs to Disney? So I'm thinking probably everyone in this room has done something connected to Disney. And my family and I went to Disney around Christmas time this year. And I was sitting at Disney and I saw all the people that were there. And there was at one point where we were literally kind of like this, standing in a store because it was so busy that there were so many people around us. You're just kind of waiting for it to kind of thin out a little bit. And so I thought, I wonder how much money Disney makes, because this is such an enormous conglomerate of business. Everything that they have going on, all the people at the parks, all the movies that they produce, everything that's out there. Disney makes $62 billion a year. Human trafficking makes almost 3 times what Disney makes. And all of you in this room have some connection to Disney. And human trafficking is almost 3 times that. So to put that number into perspective of the amount of money that we're looking that is spent on this industry, and the amount of money and people that have to be connected to this industry that we don't even realize are connected, because it is a huge industry. It is only second to drugs, and they actually expect it to overtake drugs within the next couple of years. And the reason being is it is unfortunately, a crime that is very easy to get away with. It's very hard to get caught, and it's easy to do. Because just the way our world works, sex sells. And Satan preys on that, and it is something that he constantly puts in your face, and we have an epidemic. And so when you think about that 150 billion, I can only sell a pack of drugs once. I have to continue to reproduce those drugs, I have to continue to make those drugs, but I can sell a person 20 times a day after day after day. On average, it's usually about 10 times a day, 6 days a week that they're normally sold if someone's being sold in a full-scale trafficking situation. So when you think about that's a resource that you constantly have, you don't have to renew it. So it's very easy. The chances of getting in trouble for driving around with a girl in your car is very, very slim. You get pulled over with drugs in your car, you're going to go to jail. You get pulled over with illegal weapons in your car, you're going to go to jail. But if I'm driving around with a girl in my car or a boy in my car, we do it all the time. And even if the police suspect something, the chances of them being able to intervene is very, very slim, because that person in the car is not going to speak up because they have been threatened. They've already done something illegal. Even though they're the victim, they've been told the police are not their friends, so they're not going to speak up. And they know that they've done something illegal, so they're afraid of being arrested. So it's just this case that will perpetuate itself and makes it very, very difficult to catch. The 300,000 is the amount of children that are trafficked on a yearly basis. And that is under the age of 18, and that is American children in America. That is not children being brought here from other countries. That is not taking into account what happens globally. That is on American soil, is the number that we're seeing in that. So when we talk about this, what are we talking about? How are we talking to our kids? How do you protect your children? What do you talk to them about? Because predators are on their social media. They're on there 24/7. There's literally books out there that tell somebody how to be a human trafficker. It tells them how to be a pimp. It takes them through talking points. It takes them through how to manipulate people and how to do this. And I promise you, these people are out there and they study this. So as parents, what do we do? How do you protect your kids? As children who are in this room, how do you protect yourself? Being aware that there are predators online. Having those real conversations with your kids. I can tell you, I'm a mom of 3 girls. I've had 2 of my girls approached through social media. The one was very, very blatant. His tagline in his Instagram was, "Let daddy take care of you. I'll give you a $400 a week allowance." She screenshotted it to me, and he had said, "Hello, beautiful," or something like that to her, and said, "Ooh, gross," and sent it to me. And so she knew exactly what it was and was completely grossed out. My other child was much more sly. Just started a conversation. He direct messaged her through her Instagram. In very innocent conversations, talking to her about her hobbies and her sports and what she liked to do. Told her those things that all 15-year-old wants to hear, how beautiful she is, how athletic she is, how smart she is, how pretty she was. And so it made her feel good. And so that conversation went on for about a couple days. He asked her for a picture of her legs. And that's when she kind of got an idea that something wasn't right here. And then Mom found out, and I would like to say that I handled it with all kinds of grace and everything, but I didn't. I totally flipped out and said, "You know better, what are you thinking?" And so then after I calmed down, I said to her, "I'm going to tell you how this conversation went, and you tell me if I was wrong." I said, "He contacted you. He told you all of these things." I said, "Which they're all true." And she was just like, "Yes, yes, yes." And she realized that he was a creeper, and but her answer to me was, "Mom, I wasn't going to do anything." And that's going to be what your kids' answers are too. And, in all honesty, I said to her, "Honey," I said, "I don't think you would do anything." I said, "I think it wouldn't even cross your mind." I said, "But what you don't understand is he would talk to you for 6 months. He'll talk to you for 9 months. And what we need to understand, parents, is that these people will do this for 6, 9 months, a year. And then they say to him, 'Hey, I'm going to be in your area this week, and I'd love to meet you in person.' And that stranger danger that we've taught our children, that person's not a stranger. When I go in the schools and I talk to these kids, do you know how long it takes for that stranger online to be a friend with them? I've gotten an hour, I've gotten a day, I've gotten a week. Once in a while I'll get a month, but that's the max. So your kids are online, they're talking to people they don't know, because if you look at the apps online, most of them are all about meeting strangers. Most of them are all about them getting to know people that they don't know, meeting new people. They get points on different apps for looking at different people's profiles that they've never met before. So all of those apps are all about meeting people they don't know. And so they're meeting these people, and within minutes, within days, they consider them a friend. So when we say stranger danger, these people online are not strangers to them. There is no danger in their brain. This is my friend. And when their friend says, let's meet, they're going to meet him because they don't think it's a bad thing. And that's when our kids are getting taken. That's when we see them being taken, is when they have met up with somebody that they think is a friend and they meet up online. And that is what we're seeing. And as I started doing this research, I started last year, and I can just tell you case after case after case after case I've seen where someone has met somebody through social media and they've gone to meet them. It's happened in New Bern. We've had cases that have happened in New Bern. It is happening on a regular basis because they don't feel that stranger danger. The other conversations we have to have is just being aware of what they are seeing on the internet. I can't see that far. I should have had my glasses on. Turn around. I'm going to go back. Hold on. But having those conversations, because the truth of the matter is, it's not a matter of if your child is going to see pornography. It is a matter of when they're going to see it. It's not a matter of if they're going to see, I mean, you look at what's going on with social media and, the YouTube channels and them showing how to, commit suicide in the middle of YouTube channels. Those things are out there and they're real. These people are after our kids. So having conversations, talking with your kids at young ages. Call body parts what they're called. Don't make up names for body parts. Call them what their anatomy calls them. Because when we have kids come to us and say, my daddy ate my cookie last night, and the teacher says, well, daddies do that sometimes. And that teacher just validated to that child that what's happening to her is normal when that child was trying to tell her teacher that her daddy was doing something to her that wasn't okay. And so being aware of what we call things, being aware of how we talk, be real with your kids. Don't give them fake names. Talk to them and then listen to what they have to tell you. Because I will tell you, in doing this, I have found so many kids will share things with me, and they'll share it with the way they can, but having ears to listen what kids say to you. Because if something is happening, they're going to tell you, but they're going to tell you in their way. And if your ears are tuned in, you'll pick up what they're trying to tell you. So it might be that your child has seen something, and they're just listening and how they tell you, because they might say something that they saw online. They're afraid to come out and say it right out, and they're going to say it in a roundabout way. So just having those ears to listen, because parents, it is so much harder to raise kids than when we were growing up. We didn't have all of this. We didn't have all of this at our hands the way that our kids do now. So just having those conversations. So things to look for. If your child comes, find more than one cell phone. That's a big thing. They will have multiple cell phones. If all of a sudden your child is getting gifts and things that you didn't buy for them, that's a grooming process. They will buy them stuff. They will spend money on them. If your child is all of a sudden getting all these gifts and things, they're being very secretive with boyfriends. Major behavior changes. They change how they're acting. They change how they interact with people. There is a shift in behavior as they go from that, middle school to high school kid. That's normal hormonal behavior. But if they start cutting, if they start, just being aware of some of those things, because if something happens to them, their behavior is going to change. One thing that we are seeing a lot of, and we'll get into the pornography in a minute, but one thing that we are seeing a lot of with a pornography epidemic that leads to the human trafficking is depression and anxiety, lethargicness. All of these things are part of pornography addiction, but they're misdiagnosed as other things because they don't realize that what is driving it is that pornography addiction that they're finding. So, just looking at what are those warning signs, what are some of those things to look for. The pornography is an issue. If you don't realize this, we have a pornography epidemic. There are 68 million searches a day for pornography on the internet. It is the fourth most searched genre on the entire internet. It gets more searches on a monthly basis than Amazon, Netflix, and Twitter combined. So again, if we would all say how many we've been on Amazon or Netflix or Twitter, most of us would probably raise our hands that we've been on one of them this month, or even today. Pornography gets more visits than all of those combined. And it is an epidemic. When we look at this, average age of exposure is 10 to 11 years old. And what research is showing is because of our high-speed internet accessibility and the amount of dopamine that is released in a young boy's brain, with what he can see, and a young girl's brain, of what they see and what they're exposed to at such a young age, and because they can constantly click and change and click and change and click and change, and that image is constantly coming at them, they are seeing severe brain changes in their early 20s. They are seeing severe depression, severe anxiety, lethargicness, where they just don't want to engage, they don't want to be part of life, they want to just sit home, they want to sit in their rooms, they don't want to engage with other people. That drive for success, that drive to do something is going away. And so what they're seeing is that frontal lobe of their brain is actually diminishing. And that frontal lobe of their brain doesn't fully develop until they're in their 20s. And so they have damaged that before they even get to the full point where their brain can completely develop. And so they're seeing in that frontal lobe of your brain is your brake part of your brain. So you think about your car, your brake, that part of your brain that tells you, yeah, eating that whole piece of pizza looks really, really good, but if you eat all that, you are going to be sick as a dog, so maybe only have a couple slices. And that's what that frontal lobe does. And because they're constantly looking at that pornography, they have worn that brake so down that it just doesn't engage anymore. And that frontal part of their brain doesn't engage to tell them to stop, this is bad. What we find is 100% of our buyers have a pornography addiction. 80% of them will actually come with their device and say, this is what I bought you for, this is what I want, this is what you're doing for me. And then most of the pornography that is out there, a lot of times it's trafficked girls and boys that are being forced to perform in those, or it's being used to train them. And so to sit there and say that pornography is innocent and it doesn't hurt anybody is a lie. You're selling yourself a lie, because the truth is it is ruining lives, and it is ruining families, and it is ruining so many people, and it is not innocent. I will tell you something just to really pray about is one of the things that our governor is working on is to put a law into effect that you would have to be able to pay to get pornography on your devices, that it would be locked from any device, and you would have to pay either a monthly or a yearly fee in order to be able to have that kind of stuff be able to come to your phones. That would be huge. That would be a huge thing to cut down on what is going on in our world if that could happen. Because so many places out there gear that pornography to our children. And if you go to Nickelodeon and you type something wrong in, you've pulled up a site that you never wanted. If you went to American Girls and you go into the American Girl where they have all kinds of wonderful things for our daughters to read and learn and do, and you type in an S, you have something you didn't want your child to see. And they do it on purpose because they're after our kids. And so that's a huge bill that we are just praying that can go pass and come through so that our phones can't get any of that. And that would be huge. Because when you have a cell phone or you have a device, you have access to pornography 24/7. That store never closes, and it is always there. And our kids are seeing it, and they can hide it really, really well. And that is one of those conversations as parents I just really urge you to have. Talk to your kids about that. If you've seen something and it's made you feel funky, or you've seen something and you were curious about it, having those conversations, because our natural inclination is to be curious. And even though that first, time you see it, it's kind of a shock, then they kind of are looking through that finger of, okay, what is that? But I'm kind of interested. Having those conversations, because God created sex, and He created it to be something beautiful between a husband and a wife, and He created it to be sacred. And as Satan does, he took that and tainted it and changed it and warped it to be something that is not sacred and beautiful. And so I think our job as the church is to be real, to tell kids that it is something beautiful that God created, that it is something that He wants you to enjoy in the confines of your marriage, and to be real with them and have those real conversations with them so that they're not tempted by what Satan tries to dangle in front of them. Talking about the internet, this is so big. Research shows that, I want to say it's 50% of 2-year-olds spend more than 2 to 4 hours a day on social media, on the internet, on a tablet. Find me a 1-year-old and they know how to turn my phone on and how to navigate it sometimes better than I do. And so you're dealing with a generation that has so much more knowledge than we do. And as parents sometimes, we kind of have that tendency to say, you know what, here's your phone, you know more than I do, you're good to go. But I heard the Director of Homeland Security put it like this, and I just think it was very visual for me. He's like, you know, when our kids get old enough to drive a car, we don't just hand them the keys and say, here you go, drive. Here's the gas, here's the brake, you're good, go. No, they have to take a test. They have to do driver's ed. We drive with them for a year. We train them about the road. We walk them through that process of how to drive a car. We ride with them for those hours that they have to have before they can go take that test. And we don't just let them go. And then even once they get their license, we still are parenting them. You know, go safe, be slow, don't go too fast, be careful when you're driving. You know, we go through that process. Our cell phones have more power than our cars ever had. There's so much at their fingertips with those cell phones and with their tablets and their devices, and we have a tendency to just give them to them and say, go. And we don't educate them. We don't educate ourselves sometimes on how those devices work and what all they have access to and what all they can get to. And so being aware of what is out there with those devices, have those conversations about social media. Have conversations that just because that profile has a really cute 15-year-old boy doesn't mean it's a 15-year-old boy on the other side of that line. It could be anybody. Just because they converse with you and they have conversation with you and they seem really sweet and kind, if you have not met them in person, you have no idea who is truly on the other side of that screen. If you have not seen them face to face, if you have not met them face to face, it could be anybody. And they make up fake profiles all the time. The police do it to keep a finger on what's happening with the youth. They do it all the time. So your person you could be talking to could be a police officer. You don't know. That's one way that they keep up with people. They try to keep their fingers in there. So I promise you, if our police officers are doing it, so are our predators. So being aware of those conversations, being aware of what you put out there. Because what predators look for is they look for the vulnerable. And when I talk to my high school students, we have a list of what makes you vulnerable. What makes somebody vulnerable? Do they walk to school? Do they walk to the school bus? Do they walk around the neighborhood by themselves? Do they walk anywhere where they're by themselves? Are they under the age of 18? That's every single kid. Do they ever feel lonely? Do they ever feel like they don't fit in? Do they have something about themselves that they wish was different? Do they ever feel like they're not cared about by their parents? Do they fight with their parents? Do they wish they had more independence? Do they wish that they could be able to make more decisions for themselves? Do they like to take risks? And as you go through that list and, do they wish they had a boyfriend or a girlfriend? And when I go through that list, they're all raising their hands and doing. And the truth of the matter is, you all probably could raise your hands right along with them. Even as adults, we sometimes are lonely. We sometimes feel like we don't fit in. There's things about us that we don't love, things about our bodies we don't love, or wish something could look different, because we're hard on ourselves. But predators look for those little things. And so when you go on social media and you post, hate my mother, she doesn't ever let me do anything, I'm always stuck at home because she always has to meet everybody's parents before I'm allowed to go anywhere. And so he said, well, I get that. My mom does that too. I'm never allowed to go anywhere, and I always have to. And so they're going to come along, and they're going to agree with you, and they're going to, lament with you about how awful your parents are, and they're going to have those conversations with you. Or, you post about being lonely, because you post everything about your lives on social media, everything. And I tell our youth, when I'm in a classroom, let me follow your Instagram and your Snapchat. Give me 2 weeks. And I say I probably wouldn't even need 2 weeks, but let me follow you for 2 weeks. and watch everything you post, every story you post, see all of your snaps, see all of your stories on Instagram, and follow that. And I can probably tell you where you go to school, if you play a sport or an instrument or whatever you do, kind of have an idea of what your daily schedule is, how often you maybe go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or Chick-fil-A or one of those places. Have an idea of what some of your favorite colors are, because I see what you wear all the time. Have an idea of what your room looks like because of the pictures that are in the background. Maybe kind of know what some of the music you like to listen to because of what music's in the background of your stories you post. And then I have a chance meeting with you somewhere, and I run into you somewhere, and I have a conversation with you, and we talk. And you leave that conversation thinking, wow, we have so much in common. I just met the coolest person. And I leave that conversation thinking, I got them. They're on the hook. Now I just need to reel it in. And what they don't realize is they post that all. When we were growing up, it was, that stranger danger, don't talk about, but now everything is out there. That stranger danger has a whole new concept because we put our whole lives out there. And everything about us is on social media. And so are the predators. They're there. They're also in your gaming systems. And boys, that's where we see most conversations happening with you all, is through your gaming systems, through your chat rooms. I promise you, if it is an exciting game, the predators are on there too. Fortnite has had multiple arrests for predators on Fortnite. Multiple arrests. Of people luring people into chat rooms, and they take you to a chat room, and they'll move chat rooms with you, and they'll have conversations in different chat rooms with you, so that it's harder to follow those conversations. It's harder to follow them. You have Roblox, which is for the smaller kids. There are sex chat rooms on Roblox that, the mother was sitting there beside her kindergarten daughter and looked and saw what was on there and was like, what is this? And that's what they do. They constantly put that stuff out there so that they can lure kids into and expose them to at early ages. And it's very sad. It does make your job a lot more difficult as a parent. We have to be on our toes a whole lot more because of what evil is out there and what they're doing. So just being aware of those conversations that you have, knowing that the gaming systems are out there. And I do have a conference that I do, and we go through all the apps and the gaming systems and talk about all of that. But we have to be educated. You can't just let your kids be on the gaming systems and think that they're safe. Have conversations with them, especially about chat rooms. If they're playing with other people, have those conversations. If anybody ever asks you personal questions, if anybody starts talking to you personal things, if anybody starts trying to buy you stuff or wanting to spend money on you, if anybody is asking you to come spend time with them, you have those conversations. Tell your kids this is not a good thing. You don't ever go into chat rooms with people. You stay in the game. If someone asks you to go to a chat room, you don't go. You stay in the game only, and you can disconnect from that person. And just setting up those boundaries so they know what to look for and how to navigate that. So there are some different internet sources that you can get for safety precautions for your phones and for your stuff. Disney Circle is probably my favorite. Now there is an app that you can get. The thing I like about Disney Circle is it can go on your router, and it covers any device that comes in your home. So if you have a friend that comes over, make them go through your Wi-Fi, don't let them just stay on their data. So that makes any device that comes in your home is covered with that. But there's Covenant Eyes, there's K9 Web, and there's a bunch of them. Some of them are free, some of them cost, but you can have browsers and things to put into place for your family to safeguard them. There's accountability there. There's ways that you can kind of test into those and just be aware of what is going on. Because as parents, I think our biggest job is understanding that there are people out there who are preying on your children. And as much as we would like to think that this evil doesn't exist, it is here. And the safer that we can make our kids, the more conversations we can have with our kids, and the more we can be aware of what those steps are that the predators take, the more we can protect our children and keep them from being a victim. What can you do? We do talks. We are a nonprofit ministry, So we do love anybody who would love to be a monthly partner. Even $25 a month makes a big help in everything that we do. We are actually getting ready tomorrow to launch our office in Jacksonville. So we'll now have 2 offices. Our Jacksonville office is going to be a drop-in center. One of the main places that we see a lot of trafficking happening is in strip clubs. And one of the things that makes North Carolina as high as it is we have a whole lot of military bases, and with every military base comes a lot of strip clubs. And unfortunately, a lot of times we see a whole lot of buying that happens around military bases. We always see an increase of trafficking along military bases. And so that is one thing that we're starting down in Jacksonville is, an outreach with that and having a place where these people can come in and drop in, get education, get clothing, get job help and doing resume help and all of that kind of stuff. So we are expanding. God is really greatly just increasing, and we are just trying to be faithful to follow where he takes, but it does take money to do what we do, and so we would love for anybody who would love to come alongside us and partner with us. We covet your prayers because we are doing a work that the enemy is not happy about, and we are stomping into his battleground, and we are trying to make a stand to stop where he is progressing. And so we do covet any prayers. And I do out on the table, if anybody would like to get involved and help, we always have volunteers. We do stuff like that. You can put your name on the sheet, and we'd be glad to answer any questions for you and help you in any way with that. Does anybody have any questions? I'll take a couple questions if anybody. Did I see a hand? Just go ahead and holler it out if you have a question. Go ahead.
I've heard that Wilmington and Newbern are really hot towns for trafficking.
Yes. Wilmington is huge because it is a beach resort area. So Wilmington is very, very big. Newbern is, I don't know exactly why. I could probably say something, but I'm not going to. But we now have a new sheriff who is appointed a specific human trafficking person in Newbern. So that shift is happening there. But Newbern is a quaint little town, and it's there. But we have rescued people in Havelock, we have Jacksonville, we have Newbern, we have all around. The people that we have helped have come from all over the state. So. And our biggest area in North Carolina is Charlotte. Charlotte is a huge hub for the trafficking, but it is everywhere. Any other questions? Go ahead. Both. We have gotten calls from people individually, wanting to get out, wanting to get help, but then we also work with other companies. Because typically what happens is we do not keep anybody who's rescued locally, we do not keep. We will find them placement somewhere else. And so the ones that we take are from other parts of the state. And that is for their protection and to get them away from the situation that they're in so that they have better chance for success. Because if you keep them within the same area, the chance of them getting back into where they came from is very, very high. So we have to kind of move them. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you will. I mean, I get requests all the time, and you're like, nope. But, just knowing that people are going to friend you, and especially if you have children, and if you post pictures of your kids, I post pictures of my kids, but I also make sure that there's nobody on my Facebook that I don't know, and I make my Facebook private. So only the people that I'm friends with can see my Facebook posts. So look at your settings. Make sure they're private. Make sure, those are things that we can look at. Making sure if you do Instagram, people have to request to follow you. They can't see your account unless they request to follow you. Those kinds of things. And if you don't know them, don't friend them. And that goes kind of across the board. for kids and adults. Any other?
Will you tell Miss Gates I want her to step back in here, if you could? Because Tricia, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
This has been incredibly informative to help us. You know, I believe we as the church have an obligation to God for spiritual things, but also to inform you. You know, one of the things that culture has changed, and many of you who are even older than I, we didn't grow up in a generation, to make a friend, you met them face to face, or you met them with mom and dad, or you met them at school, or you met them at the ball game. Or today's culture, most of these students in here under 18, they consider people friends just because they met them online. That world has changed.
Yeah.
You need to understand that. That world has changed. The world that you and I grew up in does not exist anymore. So we need, as older parents, adults, grandparents, need to understand that. And I think Tricia has made us very aware of that. It's a different generation that we live in now. Let me ask you this. I have 2 questions for you. Did you learn something new tonight? If you learned something new tonight, raise your hand. Okay? Now, here's my next question. How many of you at some moments felt uncomfortable with what she was talking about? Let me raise my, hey, I can raise my hand because I'm the one responsible right there. If she says anything that goes wrong, I got to take the heat for it. I'd already decided how I was going to dump it on Brick. But honestly, when you're the pastor, I'm sitting there going, whatever she says, I'm responsible for it. But you know what? There were moments when I felt a little uncomfortable. But you know what? I need to feel uncomfortable to be educated. To be educated. I told her at the office, I wish I never had to invite you. But it's going to take me feeling uncomfortable to do what I needed to do to protect my family and help you be educated to protect your family. So, some of the things she was talking about, it's long past due for the church to address these issues. Because I promise you, your child knows about them. Mm-hmm. The sex issues, your child knows about them. It's time for us to get our heads out of the sand as the church and to learn how to, and I so appreciate the appropriateness of the way Tricia presented this, but to address things. I am sure that she would address things differently with the ladies group that she met at the table. And we may need to bring her back at times, and we may need to bring a male in to talk with dads and sons. That may be something we need to do. But I am so happy that Tricia was able to share with us. Those of you from other churches, you feel free to talk to her. If you'd like her to come to your church, I'm sure that that she would love to do that. Tricia, I'm going to have you be seated for close just a moment, because I'm going to have some of our ladies come up just a moment and pray over you.
Okay.
And pray over your ministry. I do want to say a couple of things. There are a couple of other websites that we have access to here at the church. Family360.org is Brian Hausman. Screen Smarts is an excellent resource. Many of you are already getting that email. If you're interested in that email, if you will call the church office, you can get a free email. We, the church, pays the subscription per year for as many people as we want to sign up to it, and it gives you tips, it gives you helps, it gives you things that you can protect your child, and things for parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles to be thinking about as your child deals with media and internet and cell phones and all that thing. It's called Screen Smarts, and we can help you with that. Ushers, I'm going to have you come ahead and come forward so you can be taking that offering while I finish up talking. But, Soon as you get to the front, Kenny, y'all can just turn around and go right back and begin the offering. If you want to give to this, if you'd like to write a check, you can make that check out to Bethel Church, and we will send a check on. Obviously, if you give cash, everything that's given in this offering will grow to True Justice. If you're here from another church, you would like information about supporting True Justice, she will be at the table at the back following the service to give you more information and tell you how you can support their ministry. I can assure you this, we're going to be talking about supporting True Justice International. Parents, go home and have those conversations with your children. Parents, let me tell you, you won't want to have those conversations. Those are not fun conversations. And the first words out of your student's mouth will be this: "Oh, Mom, Dad, that's not me. That wouldn't happen to me. I'm just friends with so and so." If one of the directors from True Justice, it can happen with her children, it can happen to your child and my child. I bet you'll be surprised that someone hasn't already tried to reach out, and hopefully they've blocked them. Have those conversations. I have had those kind of conversations with my children. 2 of my boys are grown. I still have one in the home. And we've had those conversations. And since she shared at the table, I've had further conversations with Easton. And so I would encourage you to have those conversations and be aware of what your child is doing as much as you can on their device. I highly recommend Covenant Eyes. Some of these others I wrote down because I was unaware of those. I'm going to check those out. Let me tell you this. If you do nothing, there's a greater probability that something could happen. So be proactive. Be smart. Think about these things. I am so thankful that we had you come. What you shared was very well done and very informative. I would like for you to come. Allison and Miss Gates, if you would come, and I want my wife to come, and I want to them to pray around you. And Kathy, any of our staff wives who'd like to come and join and pray over her, you're welcome to come, and you can just kneel right there, and these ladies are going to pray over you as I pray. Miss Gates, thank you for bringing this to the Academy. And Brick and Allison, thank you for exposing our children to this. And thank you for allowing us to be a part of this and partnering with you. Would you join me as we pray? I want to pray over Tricia and the ministry. I want us to pray over her as she goes into public schools. Pray over her as she goes into other churches. And then let's pray a hedge of protection around her and her family. Satan is not happy. And so I want to pray a hedge of protection around her as well. Lord Jesus, I thank you that we've had the opportunity to share in this night. Lord, I'm thank you for the willingness of this lady to make this the burden of her life, to help protect our children and students all over Eastern North Carolina and maybe even possibly around the world. Lord, I don't even know how Brick and Allison and Miss Gates came in contact, but Lord, thank you for opening those doors. So Lord, tonight I pray for a hedge of protection around their ministry. I pray a hedge of protection around Tricia. Lord, I pray that what she told us tonight would be helpful, would be beneficial, would protect our homes. And then, Lord, that parents would go home tonight and have good conversation with their children. And that, Lord, somehow through this, Lord, a child, a student would be spared some tragedy in their life. Lord, again, I thank you for the opportunity tonight. Thank you for technology that we can share this. And Lord, so many of the things she talked about tonight, that technology is bad. Well, Lord, technology can be used for good. Also, we can share the good news of this tonight with other people. So, Lord, thank you for this opportunity. Lord, may you bless it. May you use it to help young lives and to help the lives of parents, grandparents, and family members as they have a responsibility to help their children. Lord, again, we thank you. May the offering go to not only take the gospel around the world, but to protect these innocent children from such things. Lord, we live in an evil, wicked world. And I pray as John prayed, even so, Lord Jesus, come quickly. Come quickly. Lord, thank you for this opportunity tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you will give these ladies just a moment to get back to the back. Trisha's going to go to the back table. Miss Gates.